On a Sunday afternoon in 2016, a Mercedes driver had DRS available for exactly 8 laps. But using it meant burning fuel he wouldn't get back. He waited, watched his rival pull closer in his mirrors, waited longer. Then, with 3 laps to go, he deployed it all at once and won by 6/10. But here's the question that haunts every engineer on a pit wall. How do you know when that perfect moment actually arrives? Because deploy DRS too early, and you're just wasting fuel on a car you can't catch anyway. Wait too long, and the checkered flag comes out before you've even tried. The answer isn't written in the rulebook. It lives in data, pure and simple. Every team runs hundreds of race simulations before Sunday, feeding in fuel consumption, tire degradation, and their opponent's pace. But simulation can't predict a safety car, a sudden change in wind, or how aggressive your rival decides to be in the final stint. That's why pit wall decisions in the last 5 laps feel like gambling. Except the house rules are written by aerodynamic drag. Deploy DRS 1 lap too early, and you've just burned 3 kilograms of fuel, overtaking a car that's already faster than you in the corners. That fuel is gone forever. You can't get it back when you actually need it on lap 53. Wait 1 lap too long, and the race ends before you've had the chance to use those final deployment windows. You cross the line knowing you left seconds on the track. So every engineer, every driver, every strategist is hunting for the same invisible line. The moment when DRS attack becomes recovery instead of waste. Picture this. A car ahead of you, 0.3 of a second quicker in the high-speed sections, but vulnerable on the straight. You have DRS available, that massive rear wing flap that opens to cut through the air like a knife. But when you deploy it, matters as much as whether you deploy it at all. When that rear wing opens, you're trading aerodynamic resistance for straight-line speed. The flap retracts, and suddenly the air that was pushing back against you with thousands of pounds of force just releases. Your engine can push harder, your speed climbs faster. But here's the cost. Fuel consumption spikes. At full power with DRS open, your engine is burning fuel at a rate designed for qualifying, not the fuel budget you allocated for a 52-lap race. Every second you hold that wing open is precious fuel evaporating into the air behind you, literally gone in the exhaust. Now imagine you're 5 laps from the end, and you realize you've used up your fuel margin trying to pass a car 2 positions ahead. A car you never quite caught. You had to back off, and now your engine is running lean, your pace dropping, while the driver behind you still has fuel to spend. That's the first trap. Deploy early and you're simply expensive speed. You burn fuel chasing a car that's fundamentally faster in corners. And when you finally give up the attack, you've deleted your safety margin for the actual decisive moment. But the second trap is the mirror image. Conserve your DRS too aggressively, wait for the perfect moment that never quite arrives, and suddenly there are 3 laps left and you've never even tried. Your tires are still fresh, your fuel tank still has enough, but the clock has run out. The pit wall is solving a puzzle with no perfect answer. When does this attack become worth the fuel? At what lap count does the risk-reward flip? This is where simulation meets strategy, where hundreds of computer models run through thousands of race scenarios to identify not just that window, but the confidence margin around it. Because on track, everything is moving, everything is changing, and the team that reads that invisible line most accurately, that deploys DRS at the moment when attack becomes recovery, they're the ones crossing the line with the smallest smile and the knowledge that they left nothing behind. Let's look at 2 moments in recent F1 history where this calculation decided everything, where one team read the fuel DRS equation right and another paid for getting it wrong. Abu Dhabi 2016. Lewis Hamilton chasing Nico Rosberg in the final laps, knowing his fuel tank was already under pressure from an earlier safety car restart that forced both drivers into conservation mode. Hamilton had to deploy DRS on a circuit where the straights are long, but the fuel cost is brutal. Every lap with that wing open meant burning through reserves he might need in the final corners if Rosberg defended. He made his move with enough laps left to recover if it failed, but not so many that he was burning fuel on a chase that would never work. That's the window, and that's why he won it. Now contrast that with Silverstone 2015, where a different driver held back their DRS deployment too long, waiting for a moment that felt safer, felt smarter. By the time they committed to the attack, there simply weren't enough laps remaining, and they finished behind a driver they were genuinely quicker than on the day. The difference wasn't courage or aggression, it was timing, it was data, it was understanding at what lap number your risk actually pays dividends instead of vanishing into thin air. That's what the pit wall is really wrestling with. Not whether to use DRS, but when the mathematics of fuel and distance finally favor the attack. So here's a thought. What if that Silverstone driver had deployed DRS just 3 laps earlier than they actually did? On paper, nothing changes. Same fuel load, same engine mode, same overtake attempt on the same corner. But now they have 4 laps to recover if the move fails, not 1. Now they have a genuine buffer to attack the next opportunity if the first one doesn't stick. 3 laps earlier, and maybe they're the one crossing the line ahead, not behind. It's not recklessness. It's arithmetic, and it's precisely why the data engineers run those simulations hundreds of times before Sunday ever arrives. So remember this. DRS isn't a magic button. It's a calculation, a risk-reward equation that plays out over tenths of a second and whole race distances. Get the window right, and you inherit positions. Get it wrong, and you hand them away on a plate of burnt fuel and vanished opportunity. The best drivers and engineers on the grid are simply the ones who've learned to read that window better than everyone else. Thanks for joining us. What's the next F1 strategy puzzle you want us to crack? Subscribe so you don't miss it, and drop a comment below. Fuel strategy, tire degradation, or pit stop timing, what's next?